we, right, for reporting. Okay, it is 3:35 and I'm going to call the meeting to order. And did you already get the roll call? Yes. Okay. So, we'll move now to the approval of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
I will second it. All right, and then looking for any public participation? None? Did you know all the names? Yeah, I do. Okay, seeing none, we shall move on. And now we'll move to approval of the meeting minutes for May 21st.
Move to approve minutes.
And I second. And now we're moving on to new business, and we will start with the grievance dashboard. Beth Mountain.
We've only had 3 grievances or 3 complaints that rose to the level of a grievance in the last quarter. And we were able to close out a few that we had to take some time to do a deep dive in. So overall, we're doing well. We haven't had anything rise to the level of a grievance for July. And we just had one crop up the other day for August. By and large, we're doing pretty well.
And then we'll move on to the board dashboards. Start with quality. Unless you guys want to make a change. Yeah, I think we can start with.
Okay, hopefully you guys can hear me okay.
Yes.
So this, all right, thank you. So this is our BRH main dashboard that you've seen before. So I'll just run through it, highlight a couple things. You know, we're working to always to maintain our accreditation and certification readiness. So I believe we're meeting the goal there. Haven't had any catheter-related bloodstream infections since 2008. Our readmission rate has declined slightly from first quarter to second quarter. We're standing at 7.1% there, and so we're meeting the goal. Leapfrog grade remains at a C, and our star rating remains 4 stars. So I wanted to highlight sepsis. So our prior period score was 46%, and I didn't quite have all the data, and I still don't, but then there's a couple cases we're looking at to contest potentially. But as of today, we come in at 71% on our second quarter metrics for sepsis. So we did some work on some of the issues. We did some order set work, thanks to Audrey Rasmussen for helping with that. And so we've improved from that low 46, still not quite where we want to be at 78, but we're at 71%. I believe that was a total of 35 cases. So quite a few cases. So we have improved there. Our falls with injury rate for this second quarter is 0, and falls without injury is down a little bit to 1.52. Restraints and seclusions both remain very low and below the national average. I think the next one is the catheter associated urinary tract. We haven't had any of those for quarter 2, nor any C. diff cases. You can keep going. Survey results will repeat again, so I'm not going to touch on those. HCAHPS for second quarter were 70%. With the likelihood to recommend at 76%. I will mention that we did achieve a 5-star patient satisfaction rating that is now Care Compare. We've been really close to that line for some time, and we just edged past it. So we do have a 5-star patient safety rating with CMS right now. Median time for the emergency room, we're up a little bit, which we kind of expect that in these months, and it's 183 minutes, up from 178. That's median time. Safety culture, I'll skip over those. Employee engagement as well, if you want to go down just a little bit, Sharon, as well as physician engagement. Rhonda reports that for the second quarter for the PFAC, They didn't have a meeting, had some email communications about caregiver resources, and we're maintaining that 90% advisors to staff ratio. The next two are some OR utilization stats where we're improving but not quite hitting our goal. And then the CDI rate has improved from 96.5 in the first quarter up to 97.1%. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Do people understand what the CDI rate is? On the report? Go ahead, it's fine. Okay, so clinical documentation integrity, this is a project of Jeanette Lacey. So they do concurrent documentation review, and her team looks at it and makes sure that we are capturing the severity of illness of our inpatients, and that if there's the documentation and if the patient is in, like, say for sepsis, and if they're looking at the nurse CDI experts in the program that we have, if looking at the labs and what the doctors ordered and the medications are on. So if they're in for sepsis, they might rate out as severe sepsis, but the doctor doesn't have all their documentation in, or they don't have it coded quite right. It could mean a higher level of care, and they could be meeting severe sepsis. So if the doctor has the right documentation in their record, we could code it up higher, and it could mean more reimbursement for the hospital if the right code documentation's in there. So when we talk about our CDI queries, what it does is the CDI nurses and Jeanette's team send out these messages to the doctors and say, have you looked at this? Is this what you mean in your documentation? And if you agree with it, put this in your notes. And the doctors can say, no, the patient doesn't mean it, or yes, they do. And if they say yes, and they put it in their documentation, that's when we're talking about queries. So that's something that she's been working on with Dr. Benjamin, who is still on as a consultant with her team, and looking at it of how we're documenting the severity of the illness of our patients, because we're already doing the work, and documentation matters. And we should be getting the right reimbursement for the right severity of illness. So that's why it matters that we're documenting accurately.
And as a medical staff, I'm so glad I'm not in the hospitals, because the hospitals are constantly, I think the word hounded is the word. And I've only been at this hospital for 30 years, so I don't know what other hospitals do. But Jeanette Lacey and Mimi Benjamin are always talking about documentation. So I just can't imagine anybody better. So I think the medical staff is doing it best, and it just needs constant reminders.
Yeah.
And meetings, yeah, she's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I won't go over all of them, but just some to highlight. I wouldn't say we actually have process improvements in place at this time for these specific measures, but the ones we're looking at now are the quality measures that we're going to be focusing on in the coming months. We have a staff member in place now who is looking at our quality measures monthly. And just a reminder that you can see here that we've gone from 3 stars to 4 stars. That is a monthly adjustment related to quality measures that are put in monthly, actually weekly. And so it's what I love about this versus when I was in quality department, it was annual adjustments for a lot of this stuff, and sometimes even more 18 month rolling numbers. But here we have an opportunity to kind of affect the star rating with very quick turnaround as we're looking at these measures. So the outpatient emergency department, I want that one out there because it's something that we are struggling with. You can see we have improved since the prior period, but just kind of looking at our folks who are going over and the whys behind the visits. Another one is our falls with major injury. We are looking, actually, I shouldn't say we're not looking at this. We actually have a falls committee that is meeting currently every 2 weeks to address the amount of falls that we're having at Wildflower Court, and all of the pieces that kind of surround fall care, care of residents who have frequent falls. So we do have movement on that one right now. And then, of course, our pressure ulcers, that kind of ebbs and flows sometimes with the residents that we have in-house. And then, so we're looking at that. And then also the excessive weight loss measure. We are looking at that one actively. There are meetings weekly to address that one, and looking at all possible causes. I believe some of this, what you're seeing in the percentage here, is related to there was potentially some inaccuracies in weights still checked. So it's simple as that potentially, but we are looking at the causes behind that and the registered dietitian. So that's one we want to see drop quite a bit. The survey one we won't review just because those are annual. And then Q2, we're looking at an average daily census of 54 out of 57 goal. Well, I guess our goal is 55, but out of a total of 57. So, any questions on Q2?
Home health.
Good afternoon. This is Aaron. You can see here, these are the items that we identified first quarter as KPI items for quality. I will say that we have many more projects that we've been working on over the last 6 months, of which we've already resolved. So it doesn't take into consideration all of the other items that have improved. But for the purpose of this report, we did receive our recertification from the state by completing the appropriate application. We are in a survey window and making ourselves more prepared for that Medicare and state recertification visit survey. Achieving home health agency quality rating score of 3 stars. It's important to note that the stars ratings as of July report results from January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2025. And Bartlett was not providing home health services for the first, I believe, 3 quarters. So we're actually only looking at last year and 1 quarter of 2024. And so that's a smaller number. And it will be another quarter before we drop January and then we add March. So there's a long delay, and you're carrying old quality measures to be able to increase that star rating. But I would say we are well on our way to increasing, but it is going to take time as the CMS requires quarterly updates. And there is not a, we're not able to add CAPS or our caregiver or patient satisfaction scores to our star rating, which would help because we're at 100% would recommend, but CMS does not accept that information because we do not have a minimum number of surveys because we have such a small census to have any kind of reporting on that. So we will be limited only to the quality measures and not to the caregiver or patient satisfaction scores to help support increasing our star rating. Hospice visits the last day of life. This has been a huge improvement. We went from a 73% to a 92.9% for the second quarter of 2026. So we are meeting that goal. with the expectation, the national average at 65%. This is making an RN visit and a social work visit in the last days of life. And patients can refuse or families can refuse that, but we are having families accept that extra support, which I think makes a major difference in their end of life experience. The HOPE assessment, this began in October of 2025. Our goal is 94%. For the previous period, we were at 33. The last quarter, we're at 44. And right now in July and August, or sorry, July, we're at 50%, and in August, we're at 100%. And this is a data collection requirement. It doesn't actually measure improvement in symptoms. It's that we documented in the record correctly. And so with a real focused review and teaching, we're now at 100% of ensuring that we are asking the questions and documenting them appropriately. So we'll be at that 100% going forward is my expectation. For hospice symptom follow-up visits, this is that when a patient reports a symptom of moderate or above, that they receive a visit within 48 hours of that report. However, we are penalized if the patient refuses that visit. So if it goes to the third day, that does hurt us, but we need to really encourage at the time of that report that we want to make that visit and do everything we can to do so, because that is a small number of patients. We've had 2 patients out of 40 that have resulted in this score going down so much. And so we want to really focus on ensuring that we're able to make that visit. And telephone visits, if they call and say, yeah, everything's better, it doesn't count. It has to be an in-person visit. On the home health sides, when a patient gets admitted to the hospital, it is considered a bad thing. Our previous period was 14.7%, and we're now at 5.8% of home health patients going to the hospital, and we're meeting our goal of less than 10. Patients that go to the emergency room while on home health, the goal is less than 9%. We're at 9.6%, and we were at 13.3%. We're very close to meeting our goal, but with a small number of patients, one patient can throw us outside of our goal. And so every patient matters, and everything that we do from scheduling visits right as soon as the patient gets admitted with front loading will make our hope is that will make a difference in avoiding that 911 call to the emergency room. OASIS is the tool that is used on every home health admission, where we measure what they were at baseline and what they are at discharge. And we were at a 69.1% in second quarter, 68.9% in first quarter. For July and August, for July, we were at 74.1%. So we continue to see improvement there. We have to wait until the patient is discharged to be able to get that measurement. And so month to month really doesn't tell the story. We want to see the longer period. And what's publicly reported is actually a 12-month score. And so we're going to continue to see these numbers go up, and eventually the public reporting will reflect where we want to be at above the state and national average. Timeliness of care is the home health patient that is admitted 48 hours after they are referred. And that assumes that the patient is actually discharged from the hospital and is willing to accept the visit. We were at a 64.7% this last quarter. The quarter before we were at 50. For July, we were at 76, and in August, we're at 100% of being within that 48 hours. And a big part of that was the documentation. The record needs to be updated to show that the patient actually hadn't been discharged from the hospital, or whether or not the patient refused. And then we documented that we notified the physician that the patient was refusing, and you get an updated order, and you are considered timely. We were not doing that. And thus why we've gone from 76 to 100%. And then staff turnover, our goal obviously is to retain, recruit Bartlett employees. We did have a nurse move to Anchorage and a nurse separate from the organization in this year, and an aide move to another department of Bartlett. But all efforts are on employee satisfaction, education, retention of our employees.
Thanks, Karen. Workplace safety dashboard. All right, thank you. So I know Jake is online, so I will take this one from here. So can you scroll over to see the other quarters? Thanks. All right, so you'll see lots of green in this one, which is a good thing. Jake and Rhonda and Travis is our head of security, and the team have been doing a lot of work on visiting departments and putting a lot of effort into our workplace safety. So trends are going down in events. I can still say workplace safety is a focus. We do still have a lot of patients coming in that need verbal de-escalation. We're having a lot less physical events that are happening. I can still say reporting has been up there significantly, but the type of events are a lot more of verbal events compared to physical events that we have seen in past years. So I can say they've been putting a lot of effort into the training and de-escalation of events. We just did a really good conference with the American Hospital Association. Can't remember if it was today or yesterday, actually, now that week is blending together. One of the things, takeaways, is you'll never get to zero tolerance. That's the biggest thing, is people will come in, there will be violence in our organization, there will be people coming in, and you will never have a zero tolerance for violence in your organization, but how you react to behaviors and people coming in is what you need to train for. So that is what we're doing. Travis is going to be taking out training on how to handle people, rather than calling it an active shooter, handling an active aggressor, because it may not be someone with just a weapon. It could be someone coming in with any other type of weapon. So that's going to be coming out to all of our departments through the fall and winter. So that's where you're going to see a lot of things happening with this, but I feel confident on where they are, and I'm going to let the data speak for it. Thank you.
Okay, I assume you mean we have zero tolerance for violence, but we'll never get to the level of zero.
Correct.
Okay. Good.
Yes.
Our tolerance is zero.
Yes. But as the presenter who was doing a really good job, if you think about it, if someone were attacking your wife, what would you do? You would use violence.
Levels of moral development, Lawrence Colbert.
Yes.
Need to speak.
Exactly. So we're never gonna be a society without zero violence. How we work through that is how we need to determine as an organization. Medication dashboard. All right, I can speak to this one. Rhonda, I will give Rhonda Ward a lot of kudos on this. She has a medication committee that meets. And we also have one over at Wildflower Court. And Carly works hard on all of the arrows over there, or the good catches. So there has been, our scan rates have been pretty consistent through. They changed very little through the organization, even though it has a red arrow down. You can see we're at that mid-90s%. With having Nick in our pharmacy for the last couple of months, he's done a good job identifying process errors. A lot of work has been going on with pharmacy on catching the expireds and the processes that are going throughput for our pharmacy. So those have been caught, and we have a lot of green arrows going down, catching those through our throughputs. I can say, I think we have a good amount of reporting of our errors, and we haven't had as many ones that have reached patients. So that is what I'm going to say on our medication reporting. We do have a couple category Ds that will come up in our safety reports later on to the board, but I think our reporting is getting really good where we're capturing a lot that never reach the patients, which is where our medication report should be. So I'm pleased that we have high reporting, but capturing them way before they ever reach a patient. Any questions, comments? Compliance dashboard. Compliance dashboard. Couple great things that have happened. HR is now giving us an employee screening back again with our changes from UKG over to UKG. We are now getting an employee screening list. So now we are running our SAM report again for all of our employees. That was an issue when we went to UKG, so that got fixed. And then with NetSuite, which is our vet, which we pay our accounts payable through, we weren't getting a vendor report list. So that also got fixed last quarter. So now we're running our screening for our vendors also. So those were the two big fixes. Going to give kudos to Beth. I'm making both of those happen and both of those reports going. So great job on that, moving those forward. So that got fixed for the compliance side. Compliance, there's been a lot of issues. I will say that a lot of them had to do with following policies, feeling still a lot sent over to HR with how to deal with potential on what retaliation meant. And I think we kept HR busy this last quarter on policies, culture, and now it's our biggest issues. Tiffany Riddle down there has been busy. So that's most of the kind of compliance, HR compliance piece. That was the biggest ones that came through. Yeah. Category CMS patient experience. Great. Yeah. And then, Robert, do you want to talk to this, or you did a little bit earlier? You've been the one that's been pushing this the highest.
Yeah, I didn't know this was in the deck. But yeah, it's our nursing, the nursing piece of this, nurse communication is consistently 5. And the other ones have been kind of close enough, but we finally, we have a predictive tool that's been saying from Press Gang that's been saying, yeah, we're going to be 5 stars, but it's only taken HCAHPS into account. So HCAHPS is your inpatient survey, but actually now it's also this measure is taking in the OAS caps, which is your outpatient ambulatory surgery. So they're combined. So it's a little hard for me to predict it. But yeah, only hospital in Alaska that has achieved 5 stars, in my memory at least, in this metric.
And if you scroll further, I was able to pull this off of the CMS website, which I thought was interesting. And it gives the number of hospitals that achieved the star rating for each of these different categories. So if you look at communication with nurses, so the 5-star, so there was 586 hospitals. The percentage of hospitals that had a 5-star, the end number, and you look at the percentage of all the total hospitals. So that's what I think was really interesting on it. So that's why I looked at it, and then you'd see communication with doctors, and where we fell. And I'm sure Hal is probably more interested in this data of how they calculate it out on the curve.
I have a question.
Yes.
Have we have
Communication with Chad's working on one.
Yeah, we
it's such a great thing.
we did put it out, I did work with Rising Tide last week with Aaron being out to get it on our social medias. That if it's not out already, it should be. And then the press release, I'll have to work with Joe and Anita and some other folks on it, but we haven't done the press release yet. We just announced it to staff. Yes.
Yeah.
A bit short-handed recently.
Yeah.
Oh, Aaron's out.
Aaron's out. And he was.
Yeah.
I'm Aaron right now.
Yeah, Chad did.
Okay, thank you.
For what?
Yeah, and I will say that, you can keep scrolling through. Okay. I will say Robert has been working really good with our directors, and he has automated reports that go to each of our directors each week. And it gives where each department falls. And then the other thing that I think has been really good is it also has the comments. So if a patient comes into the hospital, whether it's inpatient or outpatient, and they write comments down, that goes to each of the directors. And if the patient wants to call back, whether it's good or bad comment, they can call back, and then we follow up with it. So that was one of them. We had was a emergency room that just came in last week. That was not the best comments, but definitely needed feedback. And one of our ER den moms directors called the patient back and the family, and got really good feedback on some things that they could improve on. And I think it's really good for the directors to have that direct feedback with someone who has concerns on a couple things that they saw while they were sitting out in the waiting room, and just observations. So it's a great way to keep getting better. And then, of course, the roll-up is all the way up to Joe. So if they're not doing that, then Joe's going to come in and ask them, have you called this person, or have you seen this comment? So I'm just amazed. So basically, 250 hospitals nationally
That's
have a 5-star rating.
overall, yeah.
Yes,
So if you go to patient experience,
yeah. That's right. Or one of you. I think you need to get the word out, make sure people hear this, because, I mean, people say sometimes the terrible things, and they need to know that, you know, guys are doing a great job. I mean, a couple days ago, I had to send one of our kiddos from Johnson Center over to the ED, and I have staff was great. The whole visit, I mean, so, yeah, I think you guys are doing a good job.
there's question.
Oh, fine.
So our hospital is 5 on all of these, or what, how do we know how our hospital ranked on each individual category?
That is something I'm gonna defer to Robert.
Yeah, so these are individual ratings, like categories within that patient star rating, and there's also an overall rating. And the overall rating is what you see if you go to Care Compare and you can drill down. So what you're seeing is the kind of the drill down.
So where would we find where our hospital is on each one of these?
Well, if you go to Care Compare, it'll show you where we are. It'll show you, I believe, national and the state average as well.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And the one thing about this, if you go to the bottom, the very bottom, it tells you when it goes through September 25, right? Is that right, Robert? For this? Where is it? Yeah, October 24th,
Yeah, it should say.
September 25, yeah. So it's it's only a yearly. I mean, some of the time in Care Compare, their data is age. This is at least less than a year. For CMS, that's pretty good.
It's fine, means we'll be up longer as 5-star. I'm great, stay there.
Yeah. So is the rating summary part of the experience rating on the agenda, or is it a different category altogether? On the agenda. That was the last thing on the agenda, is the rating summary. And then next, moving forward, it's going to be 11 measures. So they changed it, so. We'll take it. So moving on, any comments from the committee or questions? Great. It's always things to work on, but it's just the nature of things. But I think overall, sounds like everything's moving in the right direction. We always have to have something to work on. This way it goes. All right. Any comments from anybody online or questions? Okay, seeing none. We will adjourn at 4:14. Thank you, everyone.